Welcome everybody, Steve here. Well, today we got a little bit of time. I'm going to start doing the body work on the fenders. These are the rear fenders for Project 56 Merc, and it's really hot out, so we're just going to do a little bit at a time. You know, your filler dries up fast. It's not very much fun, but I have had these prepped up for filler for a long time. So now it's time just to rough everything up on a 24 grit, put some filler on, and get these things done so we can get them into some paint. We want to get the project done. You know, it'd be nice if a guy had oodles of time, but reality. Anyway, gonna get this all ground up and get some filler on her. When it comes to body work, I'm still old school. I like to use a cheese grater on my fillers. I find it just speeds everything up. You know, if you go from the top down and you can get it a little straighter, makes your sanding easier, and it just saves it a little bit of time. Now I know that watching body work is like watching paint dry, but for me it's a sense of progress, because all that effort that you put into making that panel right, you know, the last step, the body work part, is maybe only 25% of the job, but that's when you get to see that everything is nice and true and nice and right. Now I like to use a 24 grit sanding pad on my grinder, or grinding pad, however you want to call it. There are other ways, you know, you could probably use some epoxy primer, then apply your body filler. When it comes to these old vehicles, there's a lot of steel there, and just using a grinder helps chew up everything. It'll show a low spot if you got a low spot, shows a high spot if you got a high spot. So I find the benefit of grinding a little bit better than just using, you know, filler over epoxy primer, and it works for me, and it always will. Working on fenders are a bit of a challenge because of the curves, but it gives you a little bit of forgiveness because your eye doesn't catch everything. So if you miss a little bit on a tight curve, the eye won't pick it up as much as it would if it was on a flat surface. So I'm working on the back piece here for Project 56, and this is, I don't know if you remember me working on this, but we actually cut it in half, because this, you know, this is the outside of course, and it was damaged up pretty bad. So all we did was just cut it in half, straightened it all out, put it back together and welded it up. And sometimes that is the best way of doing it, because you get it done and it's nice and straight. This metal, because it's kind of structured, it's quite a bit thicker than what you're going to get on a panel. So straightening these dents out is almost impossible, and it worked out really, really good. So, and she's pretty straight. All right. I'm applying the glaze putty to the rear fenders on Project 56 here. I want to get them into primer. So this is the last step before then. And these fenders are almost going to turn out too good for that project, but that's okay. So just giving it a light skip here with the 40 grit now. I'll let it dry. It's about done for the day, so I'm going to do this tomorrow. And then I'll get on to the last fender as well. A little rust converter, because I just give the inside just a light dusting. So the whole idea here. Perfect. Now, right now here, I am just finishing off the glazed putty with 80 grit. And that's probably one of my most favorite steps, because as soon as I get past the 80 grit, I know that the body work is good, or if it needs a little bit of tuning. And then from there, it's just off to primer, and you know, your panel is basically finished. Now, anytime I can use a mechanical sander, I do. You've seen me just using a little bit on the filler, and that'll be a 40 grit. And that does save a little bit of time, but you got to be pretty good. All I do is get close, and then I'll finish it off with a block. Well, it's time to prime, and like in the past, I like to lay down a coat of epoxy primer first, and this really seals everything up. But even though today most of these primers are really good, and they'll stick to bare metal, and you won't have an issue with them at all, but that added extra coat of security helps me sleep at night. Now I'm sanding this fender out, getting it ready for paint, and I'm just using a slow speed, taking it real easy with some 280 on here, and when I'm just going just until the scratches are disappearing, and then what I'll do is I'm going to block it with 320. So that should be good enough for these fenders. You know, we're not looking for huge perfect on it, but they're still going to look good. Once I'm done with the 280, then I block it with 320.
and that'll make everything nice and straight. And on the tight curves, what I found that works the best is if you use a semi-flexible pad. It just seems to round everything out. Just take your time, go a little lighter with it, and it'll do a really nice job on your corners for you. The last step, of course, is fill in the pinholes with some glaze putty. And, you know, there was a few of them on there, not too bad, but they still have to be done. And then we can just sand that out and start prepping for paint. So that ends this episode. So thanks muchly for watching, and we'll catch up to you soon. Thanks.